Satyamai talked about how for her life kind of went along and then boom, the bulldozer came. And it was like, wipeout. And then that was the kickoff of a process. For me, it wasn't quite that way. I realized preparing for this in childhood, I had a lot of dreams that I didn't understand, but they were very deep. And then at age about 20, I had a shocking dream about my mother. And that was the beginning of what I'll call my personal psychological dreams. And then for decades, I still do. I had lots and lots of dreams, most of them on the negative side, on the shocking side, on the uncomfortable side. And they were telling me things about myself in terms of people around me, shocking things, disgusting things, things I didn't understand at all even. But also my life was not getting traction ever. My life was never going. First of all, I was very confused. I didn't even know what to do with my life. Talk about purpose. I had no idea. So things found me, and I just coped and did the best I could with the things that found me. And that has been the story of my life, really, coping with the things. So I had this knowledge. I was reading spiritual books, and particularly in my 30s, Carl Jung. I said, well, okay, all this ferment, this stuff, this subconscious stuff, it's leading somewhere. It's not just misery, it's leading somewhere. So it had this kind of spiritual, psychological direction that I believed in. But I was very much what Satri calls, he says, you found me wittingly or unwittingly. And I think the wittingly are the people who are kind of in traction, they get the knowledge, and onward they go, and things go well. Not to say that they're without bumps. But for me, it was very unwittingly. I can see now in retrospect, but I had a good instinct for the right influences. And I was always reading books about yogis and gurus. Always liked that idea. I had a guru when I was 20. It was only 2 years, but I immediately understood that something very high can come through a spiritually aligned person. Now, as I was going through all this coping and unpleasantness, I wanted everybody to join me. Even the happy people. And the problem was that I could see very deeply into people. I could see what was wrong. I could see what wasn't moving. I could see the illusions and the vanities, whatever. But it did me no good to know that about other people. And there was a part of me that was always looking to find the friends I did have and want to let's tear ourselves apart, because I was being torn apart and I wanted other people to be torn apart too. And for some reason, I kept attracting my best friends and my wives, these very strong experiential people who were just kind of chugging away creatively through life. And for some reason, they liked me. And I admire the heck out of them, because it's like, gosh, look, you can do this and you can do that, and you decide to do this and you go do it. You decide to go that and you go do it. And I couldn't decide to do anything and do it. But then I started to see that these experiential friends and wives, and most recently a longtime sweetheart, they didn't want more than that, or they didn't have. We were graced with some kind of a vision, and I'm starting to appreciate that more and more. It's a very narrow bandwidth of people who catch the vision, I would say, of the tragedy of life, of repetition, eternal repetition, and catch the vision of escaping that, truly, not just idealistically. Because I've known lots of people, they talk about karma, talk about lifetimes, but there's always something very blithe about it. They're not bothered. They don't, for them, they don't see the jungle gym. And I used to think that and I'm just coming to this, that my kind of tragic, dismal view of life was tragic and dismal, but I'm starting to finally, I think, appreciate that that was my push off to come here today and be where I am now. And I'm hoping to release more and more the residue of that, because it still clings to me very heavily, still clings to me. But these programs definitely help mop that up, help me mop that up. Just like the last pillar program, I ended up going into this kind of life review, this emotional life review, and issues that I had cried my eyes out in our small group in the last pillar program, there they were again. So it's like round 2, round 3, round 4. We don't know how many rounds it takes to get. I think of them as emotional thorns in the emotional body, and they have to come out somehow before this really grand vision of elevation can come. And so that's why we keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed more deeply into ourselves. Yeah. There's a famous story, you probably all know it, The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. It's about this ugly duckling who goes through all these humiliations and shames and misery and shamed by other people for being an ugly duckling. And then at the end of the story, one day he happens to be at a lake and he looks in the lake and he wasn't a duckling at all. He was a swan. And it was like, wow, I thought I was an ugly duckling. And then if you've ever seen this, there's a number of them on YouTube, videos of caterpillars becoming butterflies, but they speed it up. So it's, I don't know how long it is, 2 weeks, 6 weeks, I don't remember, but they speed it up, and you see this thing, the cocoon, it's going squeezing and squashing and moving. It's like, oh, it looks like it's being tortured. Yeah. And that's what we're supposed to go through. It looks like, because the spiritual books, whatever, they always talk about, oh, because the beautiful butterfly that's born, but they don't talk about that nasty cocoon. So here we are at this threshold, and oh, I'm glad laughing makes me feel good too. So here I am at this what I call threshold, and I want to read someone else who was at a threshold, and I'll tell you afterwards who it was. And this is someone who was a Baba lover, Mayor Baba lover for, still is, 30, 40 years. He said, my main fear at the moment, and I mean this is a very bad thing to say, but I'm very worried that I'm fucking around with the most serious thing a man can ever wake up to. And that's the fact that very sincerely, I believe I know the path to perfection. And that route, in my case, is through living my life in a way that would please Baba. I get very scared when I see that I'm fucking around with my life. I'm my own witness. I get scared when I see I'm not my own master. I feel there's a power within me that's getting more and more impatient with me, kind of like a schizophrenic situation. Those are the words of Pete Townsend, the guitarist for The who he's still alive and he's still a Mayor Baba lover. And I feel that moving here, I felt that same fear. when Satri invited me here, I said, I don't know if I'm hardy enough. Hardy mean tough enough, inside, outside. Maybe particularly, part of it was outside because this environment I feel is kind of harsh, but actually it was more inside because I knew I was stepping up to a new threshold. So what I'm here for now is to, and Marty gave me this word when I was telling him of my insecurities, consolidation. That I'm here to try to consolidate something, consolidate some knowing in myself, consolidate more alignment, because I know my rudder is true, my compass, you might call it, but there still remains the work to be done. And you still have to wake up with yourself every day and go through what you go through. And I think I think even though I've had all these, what I magnify into difficulties, I think life has been I've been pretty soft in life. Life has been pretty easy on me in certain ways. I was looking at a video last night of Mayor Baba coming out of a building, and it looked like he was in tremendous pain walking. And it's known that he was in great pain for years and years at the end of his life. And I look at Satri now, it's tough. And, I'm kind of blithe. I think about what life can deal us. And something in me feels protected in a way I don't think I'm actually protected. Can we play the audio clip?
So we read of these things. We read of the different attainments on the spiritual path and the different stages of the journey of the spiritual path. But when we actually start getting to a place where the opportunity is to become divine and to manifest divine, it's very, very hard to find an example, a living example that you could live by. We can have not living examples. We use them and they're useful. The story of their lives, the detail of their choices, the way they acted. But to be able to be in the presence of one who's come to the fully integrated state, where the body and the heart and the vital and the mind are all surrendered to that same one principle. This is an impression. This is a samskara over which you will never recover. You will not be able to stop until this is yours. So it's a curse and it's a blessing. So that anything that is left unchurned, anything that is not yet met, anything that is still obscured, still resistant in you, will have to come forward, will have to be met, will have to be brought into the arms of the mother to be transmuted. So it's a harder role. It's a harder road. It's a more complete road. It's a more complete transformation, requiring something that we as human beings could never do ourselves. It's only the divine, our surrendering to this divine principle, that can give us the strength, give us the clarity, give us the perseverance, give us the willingness. However, we're the ones who choose at different stages in this path to meet it or not meet it, to continue to go forward or to not go forward, to reject the attractive option rather than choose that which needs to be done. We have a role to play. Our individuality is the one that has to be engaged in choosing dynamically to move into surrender and not go into a passive orientation, expecting the divine to do it for us. It's this actualization of this quality of our personhood that can initiate, that can create, that can bring forward something out of nothing in order to bring forward a higher possibility. This is unique to human beings.
There's two phrases in that clip that strike me. One is to bring something out of nothing. It's strange, like we're aspiring to something, maybe a quality in ourselves or a capacity or a sense of ourselves. We don't have, where is it? We don't have it now, but we're going to get it. Something out of nothing. And then the other one is the samskara from which you will never recover. Wow. That one isn't part of the jungle gym. And I read lots of books about teachers and particularly about students' experiences with their teacher. There was one, 10 Years with My Teacher by John Mann, about his years with Rudrananda. And I read that book till it fell apart because he was quite like me. He was a person who kind of didn't have it together but was devoted and kept his head down, moving forward. And then the other one was Daughter of Fire, which many people know. And I read that one a million times. So I was always living kind of vicariously, not vicariously, but through these other people. And here I am now, Satri and Robert Steffson. Wow, there's a story to be lived, no more write about. The turning point in this life before this, or let's say the biggest threshold before this threshold, for me was my Kundalini experience. And I call it Kundalini emergency because it was horrible, absolutely horrible. And I'm not going to go into the horribleness now because I really would like someday to leave that behind me, even though it's imprinted me very, very strongly. It's almost like the shock of a lifetime. But I want to talk about 1 hour of that experience, and more so about 15 seconds of that experience that I think may lead to where we're going. And I'm actually encouraged by remembering it. So I had gone through the worst of the experience in my home. I had been hospitalized. I had frightening experiences. I had convulsions. I had hypersensitivity to sound, to texture, couldn't hold food. It was a total disaster. But then when it started easing up, when I was first able to, I wanted to go out and sit in a coffee shop, you know, have a coffee. So I drove a half hour to Yuba City, California. And I was feeling a lot of superfine elevation of energy. And people, as they were all at that time, everybody looked like a caricature to me. Like the immediacy was so strong. Like everybody looked like a goblin or a strange or something. So I went right before I went into the coffee shop, this woman came, and I had a frozen shoulder during the Kundalini awakening, actually two. One of them was like linked up to, it was frozen to my body and curled up like someone with a stroke. So my arms were really problematic. And this woman came right out of a store, and she had no arm. She had like an amputated arm, and it was and the amputated flesh. It was like sticking out of her short sleeve shirt. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was utterly shocking to me that that could happen to a human being, and that this planet and people can go through what they go through. I can't describe to you. It just made a huge impression on me. And I went in. I was sitting, enjoying my coffee, and a woman came in. She was someone I knew. She was a mother of children at the school I worked at. And so I'd seen her drop off her kids every day for, 9 years, 10 years. And I knew her husband, very beautiful couple, two nice children. And unfortunately, they had broken up. And I was kind of sad about that when it happened. Anyway, she comes into the coffee shop and she's, "Oh, hi, Robert. How are you?" And I was very glad to see someone smiling at me and coming to me. She sat down opposite me and I didn't want to chit chat and I didn't want to hear her chit chat. And she sat down and I said, "Elizabeth, yeah, I see you're smiling. Why are you smiling? You're not happy." And I didn't mean to take her down a peg. There was no thinking involved in this. It was like I was seeing this impression and this was what came out from me. And she was kind of like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you're not happy, but you're smiling. What's going on?" And she settled into it and she started telling me the story about what was going on this week or last week or something. I don't even remember what it was, but she told me this little story. And out of me thinking, that's not it. Go deeper. And her face kind of cracked. And then she went into this story about the divorce from her husband, which was years before. And she was getting really mopey and sorrowy and whatever. And she told me that little story, not too long. And out of me came, I said, "That's not it. Go deeper." And at that point, it was like her face broke open and fell off or something. And she started crying and crying and crying. I mean, just totally losing it. Snot's coming out of her nose. And it was like totally lost. And she told me it was about her father's death when she was 7 or 8. And I realized, thinking about this morning, that's how Satri probably is when he's in the hot seat with people. It's like the immediacy is there, the connection is there, and then the action is there. And it's all perfect. It's all perfectly timed. It's all perfectly aligned. And I didn't think about that, what that meant. So then from the coffee shop, I wanted to go two places, the coffee shop and a Christian bookstore. Because my pantheon at that time was Jesus, Joel Goldsmith, and Mary Baker Eddy. So I went to the Christian bookstore, and it's a homely place with all these tacky things, calendars and cups and whatever. But on all these things were written these words of Jesus, and it was like, wow. I just had to go in a corner and weep and weep and weep and weep at the beauty of the vision that was there. But now I want to get to the 7 seconds, maybe 15, I don't know. But when I got back to my car, usually you get in a car and it's very automatic. You get in, you push the button, you turn the thing. Somehow I got in the car and everything stopped. And it was a sketchy neighborhood, so I remember I had to push down the button, lock the door, and then I had to get the key. Everything was slow motion, but I needed something in my glove compartment. And that's when it happened. For 10 seconds, 15 seconds, I don't know, I felt that there was like a cosmic GPS. I won't even say in the sky, I'll say somewhere in the universe, there was something that knew I existed. It knew me, it approved of me, and it blessed me. And when I was reaching for the glove compartment, and here I wasn't feeding the poor, healing the sick, raising the dead. I was just reaching for the glove compartment, but I was in alignment. Something knew I existed and loved me and knew about me. And Jesus talks about every hair is counted. And that's what that meant to me. That each of us matters. Each of us is counted and known by something. And there was no kundalini in it. There was no energy. There was no psychic stuff. It was just this. It was like, it wasn't like, it was like water, not like wine. It was just, it knows me. I know it. We're together. So that was given to me. That was knowledge. That was knowing. And then it passed. Then I unveiled again. And then I've gone through 10 years since then of digging in the trenches of myself and releasing things and mulling over things and suffering things. And all that's breaking the rocks that we do every day. But I suspect that 10 seconds, that 15 seconds is what chapter 5 is really about. And that when we reach finally the high point of service and understanding, we will know. It's not a doing service for, it's not putting the ego out of the way to serve. It's just we're part of it, it's part of us, and that's what we do together. So I like to end on that high note of chapter 5. And here we go now, back to breaking rocks. Thank you.